Hello, welcome back to the Lap Down podcast from the UK, having been up early doors to watch the Grand Prix. In Australia, my name's Dan, I'm with Alex, and it was a good Grand Prix, and you're going to run us through the table of contents starting grid, sponsored by DHL/Amazon.net.
They're not paying us yet, though. So
I don't think Amazon.net's an actual website either.
I'm editing those out of the pod immediately until they pay that invoice.
Beep, 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 beep,
yeah, we've got
beep.
quite a bit to talk about for a little race debrief. It was wet as balls and everything that encompasses. We've got a couple of shout-outs, both good and bad, for people in and around the paddock. We've got a little bit of Williams chat because Williams are putting the W back in that. And then some Ferrari radio stuff, because Ferrari radio stuff is always good business. And we should probably start here with the scoring of the random championship. And let's get a score update from week one, because I think I've actually come out of it okay. I've had a bit of a recovery drive from having pulled, a decent, not a horrific pairing it first felt like, but I've had a recovery drive, I think.
Hey, there's worse combos.
Yes.
There's worse combos. For those that missed out on last week's episode, what you and I are doing, we're kind of having a random wheel spin. We're going to pick two drivers that we're then going to adopt for our imaginary Formula One teams. We're going to have them as our point scorers, and then we're going to have them as our constructors and all this other stuff. So for this week, for Team Dick Energy Racing, I'm delighted to say that I'm now part of an energy drink corporation.
I was going to say the energy is new, but hey, you can make signings mid-season. It's like a Lassie and Williams,
Life moves fast. George Russell, Oscar Piastri. Pretty happy with myself.
On
there.
paper, I was concerned that week one, I'm already out of it.
After about 40 laps, I was
yes.
I was like sat down on the sofa with a bit of a chubby on right now, thinking I'm going to be flying here. You had Alex Albon, Liam Lawson, who, as you say, I think the Williams is going to be better than what we think. But George Russell ended up P3 eventually. Don't really know how. He just kind of carried on circling and ended up coming across the line third. So good for George.
This is leaking into general Australian Grand Prix chat. Yeah. George Russell, of all the drivers, of all 20 drivers in that, excluding the ones that never bothered to start the race, and we'll get to that in a bit, I think we heard the word Russell probably the least times of any other driver on the broadcast, and we barely saw the bloke. He just kind of pootled round.
Maybe Ocon,
yeah. Did they race? Were they there?
I think they were. Yeah,
I think so. They travelled.
George picked up 15 points. Oscar, obviously on for a bit of a stonking finish, ended up finishing 9th with 2 points. So Team Dick Energy Racing.com/Dan has got 17 points, which would put me 4th in the World Constructors' Championship right now, just behind Max Verstappen Racing. You, yourself, Alex Albon, 10 points. Obviously, he then he finished 4th, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because Antonelli got a penalty, which then they didn't have a penalty for. So you got 10 points for Alex Albon, and shock horror, no points for Liam Lawson, which ironically would put you joint 4th in the World Constructors title, because Alex Albon has got the 10 points for Williams, and that's where Williams are right now. So that's where we are.
Okay,
I like that.
I'm happy to have just had a 7-point gap out of week one there. That was the deck was not stacked favourably for me there. Shout out to Alex Albon, by the way. Like, that's just a good weekend from that bloke. And we talked early on that potential to be a really good year for Albon, and Williams was already kind of making some nice noises. And then round one, Carlos Sainz either had a personal issue or a car issue that meant he was wall bound under a safety car.
Do you think some poor bastard like in West Berkshire or something that works for the Williams spares department, who's probably built up, I don't know, 3 years worth of time owing over the last 12 months, has sat there with his feet up with his wife watching the Grand Prix
at half 4 in the morning,
and he's just kind of gone, this is going to be different, and then gets 13 corners in, the cup of tea goes down, the Williams overalls come back on again, he hops in his little Renault.
See you later,
and heads
babe.
off down to the warehouse to start.
I won't be home for
orders
dinner. Put mine in the fridge. At least it wasn't a big shunt, right? He kind of just reversed it into the wall and sort of did terminal damage, but hopefully not super expensive damage. But yeah, no, fair play Alex Albon, fair play Yuki Tsunoda as well. I don't think we have a huge amount to touch on with Yuki, but just in general, sexy car, sexy little man, sexy drive, until they fucked him on the strategy, and then I think he finished like P13 or something, which might as well have been last in this one. But he and the car looked good. All all the weekend. Not even like, oh, Yuki's up in P5 because of some silly wet weather bollocks. The car looks decent, both livery and performance. I mean, even Hajar qualified P11 and was almost quite unlucky to not be P10. That maybe we need to get on the running bulls, racing bulls, rackety bulls bandwagon this year.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of interesting. I don't know whether you saw the press conference, but Yuki had a couple of pops back over to Red Bull, didn't he, with his performance in qualifying, and decided to stop himself. I mean, he'd already done the damage, hadn't he? He already had said what he wanted to say, but then made himself feel a little bit better by going, actually, I better not go into too much detail here. So, yeah, good for Yuki. And I mean, he is going to give Red Bull or Max Verstappen racing team a headache. Undoubtedly, whoever goes and sits in that second seat is going to have a torrid time.
Yeah.
Because that is what happens apparently at that other team at Red Bull. But yeah, Yuki's going to give them headaches because he is going to keep putting performances in. Everybody, I think, was quite surprised he wasn't given the gig. So undoubtedly, he's going to have taken that personally too.
Do you think there's a genuine chance that they swap Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson this year?
Yeah.
And moving on from that, what round? Assuming...
Oh.
Okay, let's say that this was a slight outlier for Liam Lawson. I don't think Lawson is as bad as his Australian Grand Prix was. I think that was everything stacking up to be an absolute stinker for a weekend. What does Lawson's average finishing position have to be to see Yuki take over that seat at some point this year?
Well, I mean, you could say, so I think you've got 2 McLarens and a Red Bull, 1, 2 and 3, haven't you?
Certainly it looks
so I
that
think
way.
That's where you're going to be. So therefore, I think you're fighting 4th down. And I don't know whether Red Bull are going to be particularly interested if his average finishing position is 6th.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say if he's outside...
No.
I was going to say outside 8 because in theory, if we're going Formula A, we've got 4 teams at the top. Provided you're finishing worst of the best, at least you've still been a Formula A driver.
You got 4 points or whatever it works out.
You contributed. You were there, and some weekends you might be P4 or 5 because you get the strategy right or someone bins it, and some weekends you might be, whatever.
Yeah.
But
happens.
I mean, it could also have been a fluke by Yuki. I hope not, and I don't think it actually will be. I think he's a better driver than people give him credit for a lot of the time. And now, hopefully, if he's got a machine that's not turd, he might actually be able to show it. Shout out Lando Norris as well, because he seems to have it's a sample size of 1. I appreciate that.
Well, I don't know. There were about 3 or 4 starts in the race.
Yeah.
So
he seems to have sorted his starts out, both rolling and stationary. That could be quite a big deal on particularly some of the tracks we go to where basically if you're ahead by corner 1, you're probably staying pretty close to ahead for most of it. But, I mean, I feel like Oscar did get him off the line number 1 of 1 start. Like, he seemed to have a slightly better launch. Verstappen, I don't know if he hit, like, the NOS button or something, but that very first race start, I think Lando shat himself. I think he looked behind and went, oh, God, Max is there already, and went bang. And, that was some online lobby defense, which I think it was legal defense, and no one really made a big deal about it. But it was, I think, about as punchy a slam the door as you could probably get. But, no, the rolling starts... I was concerned coming into each one of them. And to be honest, he was never even really close enough for Max to make a move into turn 1 or to threaten a move. Like, bang on.
Yeah, I think everybody would have known just how, like, treacherous those conditions were. I know we've obviously had wetter races in the world, haven't we? But even as normal car drivers, when you've had that... When it's been dry for a long time, and I dare say it probably has been in Melbourne for a while, and you get that little bit of rain when the surface is a little bit dusty, and you do get it to be quite slippery.
You see, like, the rainbowy effect where all that oil and shit starts to get lifted up.
And I would imagine that kind of real kind of greasy, fine layer of just drizzle, which is essentially what it... I mean, there was some... What do they keep calling it? Like,
we had Class 3 at one point.
But
it was Class 1 for a lot of it, and then we did hit a Class 3 where they all couldn't keep it on the track
just
anymore.
Enough to make it wet. And when you're running around on slick tyres with however many 1,000 horsepower it's kicking out the back of it, then it is going to be tough. And actually, I wonder whether those safety car restarts and the actual start itself, maybe people just weren't as racy as what they would have been in kind of fully dry conditions because of the likelihood and what we'd seen after the space of, 13 corners, how easy it could be to catch people out, whether they were inexperienced or whether they were experienced. Everybody seemed to be gettable, didn't they? The Melbourne kind of weather seemed to have an ability just to grab anybody off that circuit at any moment if it wanted to.
If you've got Fernando Alonso binning it into the wall because, God forbid, he went near a curb, I think that proves that... I mean, Max Verstappen made a mistake. Max Verstappen made an unforced driving error. That's the whole video. There it is. That's... I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Do you know what? I don't think... his normal mistakes come about when he tries to overtake somebody he doesn't like.
Yeah. It's
that's normally where that...
It's a semi-forced error, because at least you were you were going head-to-head with someone. Not an unforced, just down into turn 14 or whatever it is. Just put it in a pool.
Yeah. Wild. Hey, it's going to be a good year. I mean, I don't think I've learned anything from today, if I'm completely honest with you.
Absolutely nothing.
It hasn't helped, has it, much, other than the fact that we know that McLaren and Red Bull are probably still the two quickest cars. But I don't know whether anybody else has actually got any quicker to catch them up. But, it was good fun. It was a good fun little race. And it always is when you just get that little bit of, just a sprinkling of drizzle. Just makes it feel a bit more exciting. I don't want 23 of them. I don't want 23 more of that because... Yeah, maybe not the best, but what is it? I don't know. Or do you just have a dry race where you just drive around in order for 2 hours and you never see anybody? I don't know.
This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, we talked about this, I think, in the preview. We got that it might rain in a bit. Well, we don't know how hard. Actually, no, it's not going to rain anymore. Oh my God, it's going to rain. Is it going to rain? When's it going to rain?
Yeah.
1 lap, 2 lap, class 1, class 3? That little... absolute deluge that I saw a couple of things from people saying that was a very isolated heavy shower as well within the circuit. Like there were people sat 100 meters down the road that got sprinkled on from where Lando and Oscar went off because it just went bang in that corner.
Yeah, that one specific bit
that they just got done by it. But no, great fun to have watched at 9:30 in the morning on the replay rather than getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
I think I was. I wasn't 5:30 or 5 even. I think I was about
early one.
7. I think in the end.
Got another early one this week now, straight to China. Bang early in the season.
No idea how I'm going to consume that one, but we'll figure it out.
Okay, should we go into? We've got some call outs. I've got a good and a bad call out. Shout out to Lewis Hamilton's dad, Anthony Hamilton. He engaged maximum dad mode immediately. And it was just genuinely nice to see that he made a real pointed effort to not just go over and pat him on the bum and then walk away, like stop him, physically like restrain him almost. Yeah. And just yell into that helmet, I assume words of affirmation. He could have been absolutely berating. What were you doing? It could have been like Yoss, like leaving him there for an ice cream at the petrol station. Like to have taken the time. I don't think that wasn't a coincidental passing either, because there's no reason for Anthony Hamilton to have been walking between the hospitality areas on lap 1. You know, he should be watching a telly somewhere. So he's made, I'm assuming, a deliberate effort. I need to go and find Isaac. I need to go and have a chat with him. And it's even cooler that Jared come out this weekend and said that like Hamilton was his idol, and then he's got his actual dad being a father figure. Like
it's not Lewis, but it's still good.
It's as close as you can get, right?
It's all going to be all right.
Absolute maximum points, Anthony Hamilton. And then I think he went and saw him in the motorhome afterwards as well, and you just think that's so nice to see at a professional sporting level.
Yeah, I know. I saw that Hamilton had been kind of interviewed. Anthony Hamilton had been interviewed by Sky, I think, afterwards, and had backed up that point, saying that he had made a concerted effort to go and find him. Yeah, and I wonder as well whether that's like, do you reckon that's kind of a bit telling of the fact that the whole paddock knows that he was walking back into kind of an empathy deficient organisation, where he was going to get absolutely no support whatsoever from the hierarchy, and actually kind of felt, do you know what? someone needs to go and do it and if I don't do it, no bugger will. So
Yeah.
no, good for him, and I think it's only kind of increased his stock value, and I think probably as well, I think it's probably done Isaac Hadjar a bit of a favour as well, with a bit of good PR coming out the back of binning it after one corner on the formation lap. So not everybody's going, hey, he can't drive. Everybody's going, isn't Anthony Hamilton a nice bloke?
Yes. And also, I mean, anyone that's played F124 with a wheel, and
because that is essentially what they're doing.
But I'm making a valid point here. Anyone that's played F124 with a wheel and turned all the assists off.
Which wheel is it that you've played with, though? This is the question, because you got 5. Are they all different?
I've got too many. Anyone that's played F124 with a wheel and turned off all the assists, traction control in particular, you're not getting round corner 1, let alone corner 1.5 where he went off in the dry. Like, if you just tried to sit in that car, like, you're not getting round it.
No, you're wrong. Because these guys, they are the best drivers in the world, and they're extremely experienced at what they do. So no traction control should be perfect, because, and I'll quote this, is that apparently only watches F1 and no other feeder series. These guys are extremely experienced at racing. Just because they're in a new car, that doesn't mean they have no idea how to drive. Well, I mean, I agree with the last bit, that just because they're sitting in a different car. Like, I've just changed my car, just literally the other day, and I can confirm that the steering wheel is still in the same place and the pedals are still there, and the functionality of it is still exactly the same. So, yes, there is some similarity there. But to say Isaac Hadjar is extremely experienced at anything at 18 years old is wild. At 18 years old, you're not even extremely experienced at being alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I mean, I don't think you've been driving racing cars. Maybe when would you have started? 6? If you're being maybe.
And go-karts don't have the same get up and go when you accidentally put your foot down like a millimetre more than you were meant to because it's wet. Like,
so you're extremely experienced, but a third of your life you haven't been doing it.
Yeah.
It's bollocks. Max Goat Stappen on TikTok, you're a dick and you don't know what you're talking about.
Got him. Just a last point on that. You talk about walking back into potentially not a particularly welcoming environment. I will say a small shout out to Peter Bayer, team principal.
Yeah, don't know. Yep.
They showed Hadjar went up to the pit wall looking quite like I've been caught doing something naughty, and arm around him straight away, pull him in, kind of like. He actually at one point gave him the hair ruffle of oh, unlucky scamp, and it's that's lovely. You have made him look 12, but at least I think on the Racing Bulls side,
he's probably quite experienced at being a child, though. To be fair,
of the Bulls side, of the Bulls, family, I think the Racing Bulls side might be slightly more welcoming. But this is a wonderful segue because I'm going to come off the long run again. I like doing this.
Me too.
Helmut
Just
Marko.
Don't outbreak yourself and miss the apex. That's all I'm going to say.
Helmut Marko, shut the fuck up, right? I am coming off the long run on this because that absolute cunt fossil needs to stop opening his mouth when no one asked for an opinion, right? Isaac Hadjar, understandably upset about a minor error with major implications on his first Grand Prix, let alone being in the wet or whatever, and we've got Alonso sticking it in the wall and Sainz sticking it in the wall and all the rest of it, right? It's understandable that he would be upset about that. You don't need to come out and say it's a great thing that he cried. That's fine. But to come out and say, I'm paraphrasing. Everyone's paraphrasing. I think he said it in Dutch or whatever, right? But don't come out and say that was too much to have been upset and that it was embarrassing. No, it wasn't. Isaac Hadjar is entitled to feel embarrassed about what happened. It was an embarrassing moment, right? Him having a human emotional reaction to being incredibly disappointed is not embarrassing in the slightest. And Helmut, stop being one and take a leaf out of Anthony Hamilton's book and actually show some fucking human compassion. You shriveled up old prune of a dick. There you go.
And I mean, crying is a really kind of important skill of being an extremely experienced child as well, isn't it? It's one of those life lessons that you would have developed and nurtured over those 18 years of life.
You're not going to let this go, are you? You're not going to let Goat Stappen go here.
Extremely experienced.
You're really bothered about it.
But can we talk about Ferrari?
We can talk about Ferrari because there's plenty to talk about with Ferrari.
Good. What I want to talk about first is obviously we'll talk about the radio messages because I mean they're just funny, and I think Hamilton's now in for a world of pain every time he plugs his. He's going to run round, isn't he? He's going to be going.
Please stop talking to me. Please stop talking. Please stop talking. I'll press K1 when I'm ready to press K1.
Oh, he's still talking. Anyway. Strategy, right? I think you could look at it on face value and go, oh, Ferrari cocked it up again because they didn't pit when they needed to pit. But actually, I think it was quite telling of the fact that probably shows their optimism with the package that they've got at the minute, is the fact that they needed to do something quite extreme and quite kind of anti-establishment to be able to compete with McLaren and Red Bull. But I don't hate the fact that they did it. It didn't work. But it could have done, and I quite like that. I like that kind of ballsiness. If you know you haven't got the package to do it, I like the fact that you're trying.
I might be wrong. I don't think it cost them a huge amount either. I think it was a relatively low risk, high risk in terms of the points that they had or were predicted, if you want to use George Russell language, to have gotten if things stayed as they were.
George who?
George Russell, he raced this weekend. He finished third. I think... Yeah, it was a ballsy move. It looks a stupid move because it didn't work. Everyone would have called... Like George Russell in his disqualification at Spa. Everyone did applaud him because he took a risk on an outrageous strategy that was counter to everyone else, and the small percentage should have come good. It didn't, unless you watch Drive to Survive, in which case they never mentioned that he got disqualified. So yeah, I think they saw... an opportunity to not lose a huge amount, maybe gain. Didn't work. You had to go. Well done. Haas, on the other hand, saw an opportunity, didn't take the opportunity, saw an opportunity to do the worst thing they could do, took that opportunity twice, and then nearly managed to get lapped under a safety car, which I don't think's ever happened. You're not allowed to overtake, and yet they nearly got lapped under the safety car.
Is it just me, or do you get kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling when Crofty goes lap down in the commentary? Because I'm kind of like, yes, that's us, free marketing. Go Google
Where's
it.
the QR code?
Find the podcast. No, it makes me feel a bit warm and fuzzy, actually. And there were a couple of members, weren't there, joined the lap down community from the race this week. Haas, interesting. The funniest thing I saw about them this weekend is somebody called Ollie Behrman Mazepin 2.0.
Which is harsh. As my rookie of the year, I need to defend him.
I mean, he's less of a twat, I think we'll kind of go so far as to say that. But there's an element, I think, of daddy's money, as there is with all of them, to be fair, to get where they need to be. But
hey, he's a public school boy. He's not privately educated.
Right.
He's from Essex, mate.
Oh,
he went to just a classic public school in Essex. I'm not saying he's not minted out the arse, but he went to a public school in Essex.
Lando Norris's family are selling his childhood home in
Are
Somerset.
they?
Yeah, £8 million.
How many bedrooms has it got?
I don't know, but it costs £8 million,
Yeah,
so I'm guessing at least 8.
It's a lot. I'm not one of those people that cares that they all come from money. Everyone in sport comes from money. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Ferrari radio, already, we're one race in and we've got a season's worth. Like, stunning. Both sides of the garage. It's as if they do it deliberately. And I get it. They're probably all speaking Italian on the pit wall and then they have to speak in English. And here's a question, which I don't know, and I had this question earlier, and you might not know the answer.
Okay.
Is there an FIA legislator? Is there an FIA rule?
Yeah.
Do you have to speak English on team radios?
No idea. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was one for broadcast purposes.
Because otherwise, Charles speaks perfect Italian, to my knowledge, or at least perfectly good enough Italian now at this point.
Yeah, to be able to communicate the
whole
word
pit
soft
wall,
tyres or something.
The whole pit wall is speaking Italian, and you can tell that Italian is their first language. It surprises me that they're forcing English into it, unless they have to, which makes me think they must have to. Obviously, with Hamilton, he doesn't speak Italian yet, so they have to speak English to him.
He probably does.
Well, can do everything else.
He's quite good at things, isn't he? Now, he is extremely experienced.
Yes.
No, I think, I wouldn't be surprised if it was for the entertainment value, in the fact that kind of, if every time it went to boop, 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 and you sat there and you were like, oh, I wonder what, and you just sort of, no, I have no idea. Literally no clue. And the other thing as well is obviously they've made quite a concerted effort to get rid of like actual kind of team orders, haven't they, to a point, and all that kind of underhand dealing.
Unless you're McLaren.
And I wonder as well, is if it wasn't in English and it was in some form of other language, I wonder whether that kind of goes along kind of, oh no, maybe they're just being a bit coded here or something.
Because the other thing
I don't know, but
they all love a code chat because they try not to give stuff away on the radio because
Yeah.
they know everyone else is listening. If you make the teams have to employ someone that speaks fluent Italian to translate just Ferrari's radio, in a cost cap era, that's not helpful.
what if like McLaren used one of their AI Google sponsors or something to translate all of their radio messages from the radio through like Zach Brown's earpiece into like Swahili, that then goes through the broadcast, that then in the helmet Google then translates it back from Swahili to English for Lando and Oscar.
If this doesn't exist, this is how we make our millions.
It's on.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. The water exchange, back and forth. I think the funniest bit from me, all of it was hilarious. But the funniest bit was that Charles is self-aware that him and the team and their radios is just a meme. The fact that he's clearly got in his own mind a book of memes from their team radios is superb. I mean, what an exchange backwards and forwards. It must be the fucking water. Like, thanks, mate. Thanks for that. I'm going to press K1 now. Shut up. Go away. Like, so
I wonder
good.
what K1 does.
Yeah, it was something to do with, I'm going to guess, battery or engine mode deployment, because they were really keen that he used it, and he was very uninterested in using it when they wanted him to use it.
Leave me alone.
Please
Use K1.
stop talking.
Leave me alone.
Please,
Yeah.
K1 though.
K1?
Please stop talking. K1.
Okay.
Press
Maybe that
K1.
could be your team name for this fancy constructors podcast.
Press K1.
Press K1.
Press K1 now. Alt K1. Oh, right. And then my last thing, just because it feels validating, Carlos Sainz has had a stinker himself and then wonderfully proved the point that we made on this podcast 2-3 episodes ago, that he is going to bring value to that team beyond being quick in the car, and he should, and has already proven, be beneficial for his teammate, because he can be a teammate and now they can be a team. Because James Vowles has already come out and said, like immediately post-race, Carlos came and sat on that pit wall and he was instrumental in our tyre decisions, because he said, no, if you don't put him on this tyre, he's not staying on around like turns 9, 10, 11. And bang on.
Do you know, like, I think Williams probably have like a good bloke policy.
Yep.
With their kind of recruitment strategy, and I think they're all good people to start with, and then I think they kind of work for Williams for a couple of weeks, and they just pick up more good bloke points, and they just turn into a nice bunch of people. So that's great for Williams, great result for them. My rookie that we haven't really spoken about, obviously Kimi Antonelli, I think he could be a bit of a pain in the arse for George Russell, assuming George Russell exists, because he looked pretty good. The qualifying was tough for him, didn't it? But he's got some good points under his bag. Didn't look phased really by the conditions. So maybe
sent it down the inside a couple of times, by the way. When you're making two moves that were so similar and so good that Martin Brundle thought it was just a replay of your previous move, and then took like 3 laps to realise you were ahead again and that was a new move.
Yeah, I think that's because he spun off, didn't he, afterwards? But anyway, no, he's backed some good points, and maybe I'll back the right horse there with my rookie. Although people really rate Bortoletto. Really rate him.
I noticed this. The glazing on that man for a bloke that qualified P15 and then eventually binned it. Everyone binned it. That's fine. I'm not going to hold that against him. But, the chat around him, we don't watch other feeder series, Dan. I've got absolutely no way of knowing.
Shit. No, me neither.
But, there's a lot of excitement around him that almost crept up a little bit. I'm only hearing of this excitement this weekend. It feels like. All the way through testing, it was Kimi, and to a certain extent, Liam Lawson, because he was in the Red Bull, I think.
Yep.
And all the chat was, doing's done. And I'll tell you what, it's not helped his cause this weekend. At least he didn't cry, though, Helmet, right? At least he didn't cry.
Australians don't cry.
No. Those two moves alone in those conditions, brave moves sending it down the inside, tell you a lot. Tell you a hell of a lot. Oscar Piastri, by the way, the move on Hamilton on like the second last lap around the outside of turn 9. Woo! Wow.
Because I swear, like on that last lap, he was about 8 tenths behind Hamilton.
And
still.
then
all of a sudden, it just went, Hamilton's 10th now then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel sorry for Oscar. It's not going to define him, that race, is it?
No.
And I think he's going to be a real kind of thorn in the side of Lando Norris and McLaren because, as we said last week, they are going to have to pick at some point.
Yeah.
And they are.
They tried to pick and then they decided they didn't want to pick and then they picked again.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. Don't overtake. Do overtake.
Overtake
we let the
nicely.
race. Please don't kill each other.
Yeah. On that, we only obviously heard a little bit of how that played out, right? And we don't know if there was more discussion, and there might have been more discussion in the motorhome beforehand or whatever. I kind of get what they were trying to suggest, that, hey, it might be about to shit it down, and everything is about to get mixed up. Now's not the time for you two to pull yourselves back into the clutches of other drivers by squabbling. So let's just both stay quick together for a little bit. It was essentially they put themselves in a VSC, right? And I don't mind that at that moment, if it was a dry race, very different situation. A lot of moving parts were moving, and they didn't need to introduce more moving parts of their own drivers going at each other. So I kind of get it. It seems messy. I kind of get it.
They'll figure it out. Last thing, really quick.
Yeah.
Because we've already kind of overrun a little bit on our allotted kind of time. But when Oscar spun and was on that grass trying to reverse back out, and there was the shot of the helmet camera kind of looking at and really slowly, like really slowly coming back across the grass, I was looking and going, fuck me, he must have a right foot of a ballerina, this lad. Not like you've just span off on tarmac where there's grip, and now you're kind of very, very gently, slowly reversing back onto the grass.
With a heart rate through the roof.
And then it panned to a wide angle shot, and actually the reason why he was going slowly is because he'd mashed the throttle down, there was no grip on the grass, and the wheels were going...
He did, though, in fairness.
And I went slightly less impressive.
No, but when he was going backwards, he was actually doing that. Because I've never seen an F1 car move that slowly.
Quick. Yeah, no, that's because the wheels were going so
were
quick.
they?
He was trying to go hella fast.
I thought he was crawling it deliberately because that's all you could get.
Nope.
Also, why do
Those
F1
wheels
cars
were
get traction on grass backwards but not forwards? Because
I
he
would imagine there's a
wasn't
lot
going
more
anywhere
weight.
forward.
There's a lot more
is it
weight
because
over
they're
the
rear-wheel
axle,
drive
I
and
think,
so it's... I'm with you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I just made a technical point.
It could be complete bollocks, but I believed it, and that's all that mattered.
Right, we're done.
It's a double bubble, so we're racing again next weekend. So we'll be back Thursday-ish. Dan's going to be in New York, which will be fun with time zones because, God forbid, your two British podcast hosts be in Britain for an extended period of time. But we'll be back Thursday or Friday-ish to talk about the Chinese Grand Prix. But in the meantime, if they'd like to see you doing New Yorky things, Dan, where should they go?
At Dan Jads on the interwebs.
That's that one. You can come watch me play games at Hey Look It's Alex on Twitch if you want.
Please do.
Please do, particularly while Dan's away. And follow us on all the things, TikTok, YouTube, Insta, Lapdownpod. You can send us an email, lapdownpod@gmail.com as well if you want. If you're going to get involved in your own Random Drivers Championship, let us know. Don't cheat. Honesty system. And everyone...
Max and Lando.
Yeah. But it's wild how the wheel brings that up every week. And if you've enjoyed it and if you've made it this far, you must have not hated it. So make sure you leave us a review and then maybe share it with someone else as well. Hey, F1's back. We'll see you next week.
See ya.